Welcome to lesson 711. This is for 4th grade math. We are dealing with weights of state birds today. We're on page 258. If you hear any noise in the background, that's my cat playing with my pen. I'm going to set up the first 5 questions. So if you only have questions on, let's say number 4 is the only one that's really giving you a problem, you can go ahead and skip ahead in the video until you can find the question that's actually throwing you for a loop. But otherwise, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to think of each of these problems to help you to guide you toward the proper conclusion. So let's start with a piece of 1A, and that piece is going to be converting pounds to ounces. And this is just a reminder for you. If you already know how many ounces are in a pound, go ahead and fill it in now. But if you forgot, I'm going to throw this at you. 1 pound is 16 ounces. And this is not just a mathematical equivalency. It's something you'll tend to encounter multiple times throughout your life. It's just something that's good to know. 16 ounces is 1 pound. So if 16 ounces is 1 pound, we should be able to conclude that 3 pounds is going to be like 16 ounces 3 times. So I'll leave that up to you to see if you can find the proper conclusion for 3 pounds. And if you do need to use a calculator on this lesson, that's fine. So if you want to take 16 and do it 3 times in your calculator, that's cool with me today. The same will hold true for 5 pounds, 10 pounds. That's basically just going to mean 16 plus 16 plus 16 plus 16 plus 16. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up to you guys. I'm going to slide over here and talk about how to solve these half pounds, these fractions. So it's important that we know that 1 pound is 16 ounces. This is what we're going to use to figure out this side of our table. So let's think about what half of a pound actually means. It means taking 1 pound and splitting it into 2 pieces, or splitting it in half. So if we have to split the 1 in half, which they did, half of 1 is literally a half, that means we also have to do the same thing with the ounces. We need to take these 16 ounces and split it into 2 pieces. So basically what you're asking is going to be, what is 16 divided by 2? Okay, and that will give you what 1/2 of a pound is going to be. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. My cat's doing that thing. I think she wants to go out. So I'm going to let her out in a moment. But in the meantime, I know that 2 goes into 16. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 8 times. So that means half of a pound would be the equivalent to 8 ounces. So we do the same thing with 1/8 of a pound. So just like for half a pound, that means splitting a pound into 2 pieces. Now it means we're going to split a pound into 8 pieces. So you can follow the same strategy we used for the first part of part B. Now we can take 16, which is how many ounces are in 1 pound, and now we need to divide it 8 times. So how many times does 8 go into 16? Well, just twice. 2 times 8 equals 16. And you'll notice they only want to know 1 piece out of 8 in this case. So 1 piece out of 8 will be 2. And we can go right down the line. Next, I want to talk about these 2 because there's a little bit of a catch. First, this time they want us to split up into fourths, and they only want 1 piece of those fourths. So let's take the original ounces, 16, divide it into 4 pieces. So what is 16 divided by 4? And you should be able to say like, oh yeah, 4, 8, 12, 16. 4 goes into 16 4 times. Now I want you to notice here, they're talking about just taking 1 piece of fourths. So if we had basically 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 8, 12, 16, right? Okay, so if we only wanted 1 of these fourths, that'd be this guy. That'd be 4 ounces. But watch what happens for our next poundage. They still want us to split into fourths, which would be groups of 4. but this time they want us to take 3 groups. So instead of just circling one group of 4, you'll be circling 3 fourths. So that will be one group, 4, second group, 8, third group. What do we get when we add these up? 4, 8, 12. So for that last one, we just kind of split and said, well, if you split 16 into equal groups of 4, that would be literally 4 groups of 4. And they wanted 3 of those groups for our last section. So 3 groups of 4 is equal to 12. Okay, let's go down to the actual story problems where we're dealing with real life state birds. So we're going to use drawings or equations. It's your choice. I may try to switch it up on you and show you a few different ways depending on the problem. So let's jump in. The yellowhammer is the state bird of Alabama, and a yellowhammer weighs 1/4 of a pound. So knowing that, what's the weight of 6 yellowhammers? And a quick way you can do that to visualize this on a separate piece of paper, scrap piece of paper, or a notebook, you can draw it out. I know how to draw fourths. That's really just drawing a circle with a plus sign through it. So here's 1/4. This is the weight of 1 yellowhammer. So you could do 1/4 for 1 yellowhammer. They want to know the weight of 6. 2/4. I bet you can see a pattern developing here. Here's our 3rd yellowhammer, another 4th. That's 3/4. 4th yellowhammer, 4/4. See if I can count. 5/4. And 6/4. So you can tell here, if this represents 1 yellowhammer, he weighs 1/4 of a pound. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4. You may also be able to just visualize by saying, hey, 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4, yeah. Until we have 6 yellowhammers represented. And when we add fractions, if we have the same denominator, a common denominator, he'll just stay that way. And we only add the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6/4. Now I'm going to push you to the next level here. I'm going to say 6/4 is not good enough because it's improper. So how can we make it proper? Well, you can take your numerator and divide it by your denominator. So how many times does 4 go into 6 without going over? And I know 4 goes into 6 one time, and it can't go in twice because that'd be 8. So that means 4 goes into 6 one time, because 4 times 1 is 4. And that would leave 2 little leftovers, 5 and 6. So we'll put the remainders over our original denominator. So if we reduce it, you get 1 2/4. Let's see what our unit of measure is pounds. So 1 2/4 pounds, which can be reduced. 2/4 is equivalent to 1/2. And that's an important thing to know for our second part of number 2, where they want to know if that's more or less than 30 ounces. So we know that 1 pound is 16 ounces. We have that. So we have at least 16 pounds. And we just found out that 2/4, 2 is half of 4. So 2/4 is the same as 1/2. And if we look at our chart, we know that 1/2 of a pound is 8 ounces. So we have 16 ounces, and then we have 8 ounces. And I know 16 plus 10 is 26. So 2 less than that would be 25, 24 ounces. And you tell me, is that more or less than 30 ounces? Okay, so that's a wrap on number 1 once you answer this part here. Number 2 is going to be a little bit different, a little more involved, and what we might do is I said this is number 1, but this is actually already number 2. This is number 3. Number 3 will be a little more involved because there's a lot more things going on here. And this might be a 2-part lesson. If you need, if you have any questions on 4 and 5, maybe we'll throw that into a part 2. But let's jump into this guy here. The question is, what is the combined weight of 3 4 3/8 pounds nenes from Hawaii and 2 7 5/8 pound brown pelicans from Louisiana? These are 2 of my favorite state birds. Nenes are very similar to Canadian geese, except that they have developed the ability to handle warmer temperatures on their feet on account of Hawaii's volcanic structure. And pelicans are just, they're kind of cool. So let's figure out what we need to do here. We're combining. And if you're combining something, that usually means we are adding. If you're combining 2 and 4, you get 6. And we're going to add together 3 4 3/8 pounds nenes and 2 7 5/8 brown pelicans. So let's start with the nene. So I'm going to take this one state bird at a time. So the nene weighs 4 3/8 pounds. So I'm going to put 4 3/8. But the thing is, we don't have just one of them. Our problem says we have 3 nenes. So it's going to be 4 3/8 plus 4 3/8 plus 4 3/8. And now let's look at the brown pelican. 2 of these guys. So since we're combining, that means we're adding. So that means we'll have to add 7 5/8 for 1 pelican. That's a hefty weighted bird. There's 2 of them. So we'll have to do 7 5/8 plus 7 5/8 to represent 3 nenes and 2 brown pelicans. So if you're looking for a way to solve from here, I think I'm going to try to set this up for you guys to figure out this time. I'm just going to show you my way. The first thing I would do, let's see if I can find a pen that the cat has not stolen from me. From here, I would add the whole numbers first. I would focus only on the whole number parts of these mixed numbers. So I would go 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 7 plus 7. And I realize I'm off the page. Sorry about that. So 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 7 plus 7. And once you find your first whole number, by adding all these 5 numbers up, these 5 whole numbers, I would go back for a second round where I would add the fractions. And here's the good news about adding these fractions. They already have a common denominator. So all you're going to have to do is add the numerator. So we already know the fraction will have a denominator of 8 because that's our common denominator. So your job is only going to be to add this top numerator. Okay, so I'm going to leave that in your hands. Add the whole numbers first, then add the fractions second. Now, one thing I'm going to throw at you, the numerator, I can already tell, is going to be larger than the denominator. For instance, I'm going to make a number up. This is not right. Warning, this is not correct, I don't think. But if our numerator happened to be 24 over 8, Kobe's old number and Kobe's new number. But if it happens to be 24/8, I want to see if you can reduce it. Okay, and remember to reduce an improper fraction when a numerator is bigger than a denominator. You take that numerator, you divide it by the denominator. So in this case, 24 divided by 8, 8 goes into 24 3 times. So the reduced fraction here would be 3. But I'll say not the right answer. So if you get an improper fraction, my challenge is to see if you can reduce it. All right, I have 15 seconds left in this part here, so I'm going to have to let you loose. Add those whole numbers, add those fractions, see if you can reduce the fraction. and then you'll be all set for the Pelican Nene problem. I will see you for part 2 in a moment.